Okay, so number 4, go ahead and factor that. Make sure you factor it completely. All right, so what's the first thing you think when you see anything that you got to factor? What's the first thing you think? Hopefully you're thinking factor out common factors first. Hopefully that's going to be the first thought every single time you're factoring. You look at this one, there's none, right? Agreed, there are not any. Next thing, when you look at something with just 2 factors, then it's going to fit into pretty much one category so far that we've dealt with. And therefore, if it has 2 factors, if we're going to be able to factor it besides getting out common factors, it would have to be a difference of 2 squares. And hopefully that's what you said, is a difference of 2 squares. And you said 2 parentheses. And you said plus in the middle of one, minus in the middle of the other. You said the square root of the first goes first. And you said the square root of the last goes last. And onward you go, right? How many got that correct? Okay. So difference of 2 squares, look for them. What's your clue? Only two factors. So it's a binomial, and therefore you're looking for a difference of 2 squares. Let me throw an aside here. Let me throw one in, all of our own. How about something like this? How about something like, let's go 25n squared plus 1. 25n squared plus 1. I don't want you to factor this. Are there any common factors, yes or no? No. That was your first thought, though, right? Is it a difference of 2 squares? No, it's not. You can factor it if you want, though. And let me show you this. We'll deal with this again later on. But here's what this thing factors into. So plus in the middle of one, minus in the middle of the other. You say, Mr. Scarfy, you're treating it as a difference of 2 squares. I am. Even though the problem is this plus sign in the middle, right? That's the issue. If that were a negative sign, we'd be good to go, and we'd factor it as a difference of 2 squares. It's got a plus sign. But there is something we can do. So again, we're going to take the square root of the first and put it first. I am going to take the square root of the last, but because of that plus sign, there's something I have to do, and 1 probably wasn't the best. You know, let's make this a 4, so it's more obvious what I'm going to do here. The square root of the last, if I go 2 and 2, if I multiply these 2 binomials out right now, I'm going to get what? What would I end up with if I multiply these 2 binomials out? I would get 25n squared, and then what? Minus 4. And I need a plus 4. And we'll deal with this in a little bit, but if you actually use imaginary numbers there, that thing factors. Okay? So that's for down the road. You guys won't worry about those too much right now. We'll deal with them a little bit more, but I want to tie it in right now to this, so that later on when we get to it, it'll make sense to you. And I'll tie it in again later on. Now, let me throw one more out at you. How about something like this? How about, let's go 81y squared, and let's go minus, and let's go 5. So this doesn't quite fit again, the category of a difference of 2 squares, right? The first term, it is a binomial. The front is a perfect square, yes? There is a minus sign between, so that's good, but the back term isn't a perfect square. However, we could actually factor this thing. So I want you to factor this as a difference of 2 squares. Go ahead and try it. I'm going to pause the recording. So the reality is, if you know what you're doing, you're probably done, and if not, you're not sure, and that's fine. But hopefully you said plus in the middle of the first and minus in the middle of the second. And again, you can swap those. Some courses like to put that negative in the front and the positive in the back. I always like to do the positive in front. All right, square root of the front term goes in the front, right? And hopefully you all got that far. So how would this thing end up? Somebody raise your hand. How would I finish this thing? Anybody? Did anybody finish this? I'm just curious. 1 person? 2? 3? So somebody want to tell me how to finish it? Jeff? Not eyes on this one, because the difference is this is a negative. Okay? But at least you tried something. Somebody else? Abigail? Wouldn't work, but at least you tried something. Anybody else? Okay. Let me show you the answer. The answer is located right there. And I've been saying it all along, right? Every time I factor a difference of two squares, don't I say that? I say the things that are off to the side, because that's what you're thinking, right? So we looked to factor out common factors first. There were none. And then you two parentheses, plus in the middle of one, minus in the middle of the other, da-da-da-da-da-da. All right, so now can you finish it? Now can you finish it? So let me go back to number 4, the first one. So this is what I said, two parentheses, plus in the middle of one, minus in the middle of the other. And I said square root of the first, and I said square root of the last, right? Isn't that what I said? Okay. So now can you finish it? So how does this thing finish? Anybody? Hunter? Yes, square root of 5, square root of 5, right? Square root of the front in the front, square root of the back in the back. The only issue is you got to leave it as a square root of 5. And we don't want a decimal equivalent, so we'll just leave it. That's an exact answer. If you were to multiply that back out, you will get the exact same binomial. So in this case, with the difference of two squares, and the back term is not a perfect square, you can still factor it if you use a square root. I probably should have saved this one for later because I don't want to confuse you with that. But that one is something you should be able to do. All right, let's go down and let's do number 8. All right, go ahead and try number 8. Go ahead and factor number 8. And again, if you're at home, I'm going to pause every time. You should pause. Okay, so hopefully this one you look at it, you say I'm looking to factor out common factors first. You say there are none. Two parentheses. All right. This is going to be trial and error. Yes. So I know my front term has to multiply to a squared. And I know my back term has to multiply to positive 18. But again, guys, your focus has to be the middle, right? It's the middle that I'm trying to figure out, because I know I'm going to multiply my outers and I'm going to multiply my inners to add up to that negative 19. And if you see that, then it's pretty simplistic and pretty quick. Negative 18, negative 1, or you could have the negative 18 in the front and the negative 1 in the back. That's the only thing that's going to get me to a negative 19a in the middle. I mean, that's it. That one should have been a quick one. So again, your focus has to be the middle. How many got that one correct? And that one should have been 100%. Because how else are you going to get a negative 19a in the middle? You got 18 and 1, you got 3 and 6, which is going to give you a 9 or a 3. And what, 2 and 9, which is going to give you an 11 or a 7, and really none of those because you got to use negative and negative. All right, so again, you're looking at the middle. Let's do another one. Let's go through and let's do 14. All right, your front's got to be 7x and x, or x and 7x. There's no other choice. So at least that's good. You got one choice, right? And again, it's all about the middle. I got to end up at a negative 67. And I always like to look here first. Man, negative 67. I better get somewhere around 70. If I stick a 10 there, isn't that a 70? Is the 67 positive or negative? It's negative. So let's start out with a negative 70. What else gives you this negative 30? This has to then be a positive 3, and lo and behold, 70 negatives and 3 positives gives you 67 negatives. That's it. I'm done. Because I'm looking at the middle, and that's what's driving my choices, right? In the trial and error, I'm looking at the middle. How many got that one right? Okay. And again, that could have been a 22nd factor. Because again, that negative 67 in the middle, I'm thinking use that 7, and away we go. All right, that's the kind of thought you need. Let's try 18. 18. By the way, when there's multiple fronts, I usually try the front that's keeps from the extreme numbers. So that's why I thought of 8 and 2 first off. 4 and 4 second off. That one's balanced out. That's definitely possible. 16 and 1, that's pretty out of balance, though it is possible that that's the pair. But everybody found out that it's the 8x and the 2x, right? Because again, it's all about the middle. It's all about the middle. It's all about the middle. So in my mind, I'm immediately looking at my outers. And I'm thinking 8 times what is going to get me close to a negative 34? Well, 8 times 15? That's ginormous. I am nowhere near negative 34. 15 and 1, 3 and 5. 8 times 3, 24. Okay, that's a possibility. 24. But the problem is, one's got to be positive and one's got to be negative, and so the other one's going to take away from. So you could try it if you want. But if I go 5 here, I've got a 40. Oh, I'm in the ballpark now. And of course, then I'm thinking then the 3's got to go there, and a 40 and a 6. Can you get to 34 from a 40 and a 6? Yeah. And again, this is the thoughts that we're going through, right? And what's the middle? Is it positive or negative? It's negative, so I need the 40 to be negative and the 6 to be positive. All right, and 8x plus 3 times 2x minus 5, because again, my outers and inners add up to a negative 34x. How many got that one in the limited time I gave you? And again, I know some of you, you'd get there if I gave you more time. So, all right, let's try 22. Try 22. All right, again, I'm giving you limited time. How many think you have it? Okay. So now we've just done, what, 4 or 5 problems where there were no factoring out of common factors, but you were thinking of it every time, right? So that when you got to this one, you definitely factored out the common 2x, right? I hope. I hope you did. And what do you get? X squared minus 4. And then you see the difference of 2 squares. So 2 parentheses, plus in the middle 1, minus in the middle of the other. Square root of the first, square root of the last, and 2x times quantity x plus 2 times quantity x minus 2. How many got that correct? Okay, good. So keep common factors in your brain and don't neglect them. Let's try 37. 37. Have you got it? How many have it? 2 people? Should be more. All right, so you all did this, right? You all saw the common, what, 3a cubed? So you get a common 3a cubed. What is this? 4a squared minus 3a plus 6. All right? And then you said trinomial. And you're saying 4a and a, or 2a and 2a, right? And with a positive 6, you definitely know you got to use negatives, right? Negative, negative. So again, I'm just running through the possibilities. Again, I wouldn't write, but negative 6 in the back, that's a negative 24. That's never going to get me there. How about the negative 1 in the back? That's a negative 4, but this one's going to be negative. That's more negatives. That's not going to get me there. How about 2 and 3? Negative 3 in the back. It's a negative 12. And a negative 2, that's not going to get me there. Negative 2 in the back. Negative 8, I'm already above, and more negatives, that's not going to get me there. None of those. Go to the right-hand side. All right, I'm balanced out, so it doesn't matter where I put them. Negative 6, that's a negative 12 and more negatives. I'm not getting there. Negative 3, negative 6, and more negatives. I'm not getting there. You know what? This is the answer. That's it. Does every trinomial factor? No. Every trinomial does not factor. And that is the factoring of that. All you could do was factor out common factors. So in reality, how many of you had it? You just didn't know it. Well, again, you know, I cycled through all the possibilities, and it didn't take a ton of time. Because here's what helped my time, though. I knew that I had to be using a negative times a negative to get that positive 6. So that cut down a lot of the choices. I can't use one positive, one negative. Because that last term's a positive 6. That cuts down all the choices. And therefore, then I realized, nope, nothing factors. I tried the possibilities. That's it. All I could do was factor out common factors. Don't let that throw you off. Occasionally, one will be thrown in like that, and that will be the situation. All right, here is the deal for tonight. You guys aren't going to like this, but it is what it is. If you missed greater than 2, not counting the last 2 problems for those you that had to do the last 2, okay? If you missed more than 2, this homework is for you. If you missed 2 or less, in my estimation, you're okay and you don't need the extra practice. Okay? So again, if you missed 3 or more, not counting the last 2, then this homework is for you. If you missed 2 or less, then I'm deeming that you're okay and you probably don't need the extra practice. You can practice some odds if you want, but I'll leave it up to you on your own, all right? Rest of your homework too. Quiz tomorrow. Quiz tomorrow. Quiz tomorrow. Quiz tomorrow. It's only a day away.